Hey folks, today we're gonna have a look at DBT unit tests and model versions and unit testing different versions of models. So let's do a quick overview of the project currently. So here I've got a full model, and full model has 1 as input. So this is pretty straightforward table model here. Next, I have bar, which is picking up from foo, and it is basically just doubling whatever the input is. So 1 times 2 will be 2. And then finally I have bears, which kind of just picks up from the bar model. So I can go ahead and kind of build all my models. And here we see foo, bar, and bears are going to build just kind of as expected, which is all great. And if we kind of do a preview, bears, it should be 2, which is expected because bears is just a selection of bar itself. Okay, so now let's look at a quick unit test. So here I've got a unit test that is testing the model bar. Basically, I'm testing the business logic bar. And here I've got the input, which is model foo. So basically this is exactly as you see here. Foo is being input into bar, and bar is doubling the value here. Now I've got some test cases as well. So for example, if I've got an input of 0, then it should be 0. If I've got 2, then it should be 4. And this is the name of the unit test. I'll show you why later. I call it this way, but let's go ahead and do a quick test and let's see how it looks. Okay, so here everything runs as expected. There's no problems here. We can do a quick test to see what happens if it's a error condition. So 2 times 2 is 4. It is not 3, but here I specified it to be 3. So here I expect an error. So let's see kind of what happens over here. Okay, so here we get a failure. You can see here the output was 4, but here I said it should be 3. So this is the error and this is expected. Okay. So now let's think about this for a second as we want to introduce a new bar. So we want the version 2 of bar. But now, bar, we want to multiply by 4 instead of 2. So what we can do here is we can duplicate this. We can say bar v2, which is kind of the convention here. So bar v2, I'm going to multiply it by 4. And at the same time, I'm going to call this bar v1 just for, so we can kind of keep everything in the right convention. And in my model YAML file, what I'm going to do first, I'm going to specify something like this, right? So I'm going to say the latest version is v1, which is our doubler, right? v2 is our quadrupler here. So I'm going to say the latest version is still 1. So when bears builds is going to pick up from v1 instead of v2. We can see that in action. So here we build foo, bar version 1, bar version 2, as well as bears. But here we see bears is still picking up from v1, which makes sense. So if we preview this stuff, it should still be 2. Okay. Now, if you do a quick swap and say the latest version is 2 instead, then bears would resolve to bar v2, which is our quadrupler, right? So if we do a bears, now it should pick up bar v2 instead. We can have a look. And indeed, it picked up bar v2. And if we look at a quick preview, this should be 4 because 1 times 4 equals 4. Okay, great. Now, I'm going to change this back because this is not what we want to test here. We kind of want to look at unit tests instead, right? So here, I've got a unit test that says foo and bar here. So what happens now is we have 2 versions of bar, right? So this is going to test, this is going to run the same unit test twice, and we can see what happens right here. So we ran 2 unit tests. We have a pass on bar version 1 because we know it works as before, right? However, for our other unit tests, we are getting a failure because we know bar v2 is a quadrupler. So if you look at the input, 2 times 4 is 8. And here we have 2 times, this we expect 8 here, but the output here is 4. And so that is, well, not, the output is 8, but our unit tests say we expect 4, and that is the problem, right? So unit tests also has other configurations. So let's go and make things right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this input and output so that this only runs on the unit test called foo times 0 bar. And the doubler, I'm going to run it and I'm going to say version include only version 1 of bar, right? So here we are going to test that bar version 1 doubles foo 2 times 4, 2 times 2 equals 4. And over here, I have another test. And here I'm going to say foo times 4, right? And this kind of the equivalent. So if I say include version 2, or I say exclude version 1, it's kind of the same thing because I only have 2 different model versions, right? So that's great. Now let's see what happens here if we do a test. Now we should have multiple unit tests and everything is passing now as expected. Basically, we run the foo times 0. So as we know, input of 0 should have an output of 0 no matter what we times. And we see it right here. And 2 times 2 is 4. This is passing. 2 times 4 is 8. This is passing. So you can see here, for example, if I do a quick swap, just to kind of prove the point that this is equivalent. Foo times 2. So again, we get the kind of same output. So as you can see here, DBT unit tests, we are able to tell DBT, hey, please run a unit test, for example, this one, on model bar, but only version 1. And here we can say, please run this unit test on bar, but only include version 2 of bar. And that's pretty much all there is to it. We want to specify different versions, and in the unit test itself, we can say there's a versions key. There's a kind of a warning here, but that's because of a different thing. But you can see here the syntax still works, and our output and everything still works as we expect them to. Thank you.